So tell me, my wife said loudly, swirling the wine in her glass, how does it feel to be the laziest husband in the room? The words hit me like a slap, but I didn't react, at least, not visibly. Laughter rippled through the dining room, bouncing off the candlelit walls. Some of it was genuine, the kind of laugh people give when they're enjoying a good roast. But there was another kind, the hesitant chuckle from those who weren't sure if they should be laughing. I reached for my drink, keeping my face neutral. Come on, babe, she continued, nudging my arm like we were co-conspirators in this joke. Tell them, when was the last time you did something useful around the house? More laughter. I exhaled slowly, gripping my glass tighter. We were at our friends Nate and Lisa's place, seated at their long wooden dining table, the air thick with the scent of garlic butter and expensive red wine. It was one of those perfect dinner party setups, the kind that belonged in a magazine. The conversation had been light, full of inside jokes and stories about work, vacations, and kids. Then, my wife decided it was comedy hour, and that was her material. I glanced around the table. Nate smirked but didn't say anything. He was too used to my wife's little jokes by now. Lisa gave me a quick sympathetic look before taking a sip of her drink. Her husband, Mark, raised his eyebrows at me, as if waiting to see how I'd respond. His wife, Jen, stifled a chuckle but kept her eyes down, clearly uncomfortable. I wanted to ignore it, to just let it pass like I always did. But the moment stretched too long, the attention lingering on me. My silence was only making it worse. I cleared my throat. I did cook dinner last night, I said, keeping my voice light. And the night before that. Pretty sure I haven't starved us yet. My wife rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh, please. Heating up leftovers isn't cooking, sweetheart. More laughter. Except I hadn't heated up leftovers. I had made an entire meal from scratch. Chicken parm with homemade sauce. Our son had told me it was better than the one at his favorite restaurant. But sure, let's call it reheating. I glanced at Lisa, who shot me another look, this one more pointed. She knew what I had cooked. She had literally asked for the recipe last week. Still, I swallowed the irritation and forced a chuckle. All right, guess that one doesn't count, I said. But I did fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen last weekend. My wife let out a mock gasp. Oh, well, you mean the faucet I asked you to fix for 3 months? She turned to the group, shaking her head with exaggerated exasperation. This man will literally let the house fall apart before he picks up a wrench. I swear, if I didn't nag, nothing would ever get done. That was the moment. That tiny, almost imperceptible shift in the room. The laughter didn't come as quickly this time. It wasn't just me who noticed the edge in her tone, the way she made it sound like I was some lazy, incompetent child she had to manage. I saw Mark glance at his wife, who looked away. Lisa busied herself with her wine glass. Even Nate, who usually laughed at everything, was just stirring his pasta around his plate. My wife, of course, didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. She was still riding the high of making me the joke. You know, she went on, smirking at me, sometimes I wonder if you'd survive without me. Like, what would you even do if I just disappeared for a week? I tilted my head. I guess I'd finally get a full week of peace and quiet. The room erupted into laughter, this time at her expense. Her face fell for half a second before she quickly forced a smile. Oh, look at that. Guys, he's got jokes. She nudged my arm again, a little harder this time. You know, you should save that wit for when I ask you to do literally anything around the house. And just like that, the attention was back on me. The moment I had almost taken control of was gone. I let out a breath and sipped my drink, feeling the familiar weight of frustration settle in my chest. Because this wasn't new. My wife had always had a habit of using me as her personal punchline in social settings. The lazy husband jokes, the useless man routine. It had started off small, little remarks here and there, but over time, it became her go-to, and I had always let it slide. But tonight, something about it felt different. Maybe it was the way people hesitated before laughing. Maybe it was the way Lisa kept looking at me like she knew this wasn't a joke to me. Or maybe I was just finally tired of playing along. I put down my drink and glanced at my wife, who was now chatting with Jen like she hadn't just spent the last 5 minutes tearing me down in front of our friends. I had a choice. I could let it go, laugh it off like I always did. Or I could finally say something, really say something. Not in anger, not in some petty jab back at her. But in a way that would make her feel it. I didn't know how yet. But one thing was for sure. This time, I wasn't letting it slide. I wasn't always the punchline. There was a time, early in our marriage, when my wife spoke about me with admiration. I remember overhearing her on the phone with a friend, talking about how lucky she was to have a husband who actually cooked, who knew how to fix things, who didn't leave her to do everything herself. I remember the way she'd squeeze my hand when she introduced me to her friends, almost like she was showing me off. But somewhere along the way, the admiration turned to mockery. I don't know exactly when it started. Maybe after our son was born and the exhaustion of parenthood set in. Maybe after I switched jobs and started working from home, where it was easier for her to assume I was just lounging around all day. Or maybe it was just her. Something in her changed, or maybe something in me did. At first, it was just little things, small jabs here and there, usually in private. You didn't fold the towels right. Ugh, sometimes I swear I have to do everything myself. Wow, you actually put your plate in the dishwasher this time. Miracles do happen. Must be nice, working from home. Wish I could sit around all day. They were small enough to brush off. I told myself she was just stressed, that I should be patient, that it wasn't worth starting a fight over. But then she started doing it in front of other people. The first time it happened, we were at a barbecue with some friends. One of the guys made a joke about how his wife never let him near the laundry because he always shrank her clothes. My wife laughed and said, "Oh, same. If I let him do the laundry, he'd probably set the whole house on fire." It caught me off guard. I laughed along because everyone else was laughing, but something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. I did the laundry. Regularly. I wasn't some clueless husband who didn't know how a washing machine worked. That was the first time, but not the last. It became a thing, her thing. The useless husband routine. At dinner parties, at family gatherings, at casual get-togethers with friends. Oh, don't even ask him to plan anything. If I left vacation planning to him, we'd end up in a Motel 6 next to a highway. He thinks he helps out at home, but let's be honest, if I didn't remind him, he wouldn't even know where we keep the vacuum. Ladies, you know how men are. If I don't tell him exactly what to do, he'll just sit there watching TV all day. At first, I tried to talk to her about it. Hey, could you not say stuff like that in front of people? It makes me look bad. Oh, come on, she'd say, rolling her eyes. It's just a joke. Yeah, but it's not really funny to me. You're being too sensitive. Everyone knows I'm joking. So I let it go. Again and again. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting over. That she didn't really mean it. That maybe I was being too sensitive. But the thing is, when someone says something enough times, people start to believe it. It didn't matter that I cooked dinner most nights. That I handled all the bills. That I fixed things around the house, helped our son with homework, made sure everything ran smoothly. What mattered was the story she was telling, and the more she told it, the more people believed it. I started noticing the way her friends looked at me, the way they smirked when she made another joke at my expense. I noticed the way some of the husbands started teasing me, too. Hey, heard you finally changed a light bulb. Congrats, man. Man, I wish I had your setup. Just sitting around all day while the wife handles everything. They said it as a joke, but after a while, I realized some of them actually believed it. And why wouldn't they? It was the only version of me they ever heard. The worst part, I started doubting myself. I'd be exhausted after a long day of work, after cooking, cleaning up, helping our son with school stuff. And still, this little voice in the back of my head would whisper, maybe you really aren't doing enough. Maybe you really are lazy. Maybe she's right. That was the part that hurt the most. Not the jokes. Not the way people laughed at them. But the way she made me question myself. And so, for years, I just took it. Let her have her laughs, let people think what they wanted. Until tonight. Because tonight, I saw something different. I saw the way people hesitated before laughing. I saw the way Lisa kept looking at me like she knew I wasn't okay with it. I saw the way the energy in the room shifted when my wife made that last joke. For the first time, it felt like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one who thought this had gone too far. And that changed everything. I don't know exactly what did it. Maybe it was the way Lisa kept glancing at me, her expression carefully neutral but her eyes saying, this isn't funny, and we both know it. Maybe it was the fact that, for the first time, the laughter wasn't immediate. That brief, awkward silence before some of the guests forced out a chuckle to fill the gap. Or maybe it was just me. Maybe something inside me finally snapped. Because as my wife smirked, swirling her wine like she'd just delivered the best joke of the night, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't letting this slide. Not this time. She had done this too many times before, and I had let her. I had swallowed my frustration, laughed along, and told myself it wasn't worth it. I had let her tell a story about me, one that wasn't true, but one that had shaped how people saw me. And I had let it shape how I saw myself. Not tonight. I put down my drink, slowly, deliberately, and leaned back in my chair. I made sure my expression stayed neutral, calm, not defensive. Then I turned to her and, in the same casual, amused tone she always used with me, I said, "All right, let's play a game. Since we're telling stories, how about we go around the table and everyone lists what they actually do at home? You know, responsibilities, chores, that kind of thing. Should be fun, right?" Her smirk faltered just slightly. "Oh, please," she said with a laugh. "We don't need to do that." I ignored her and turned to Mark. "You first, man. What's your setup?" Mark blinked, caught off guard, but then he shrugged. Well, I handle most of the yard work, the car stuff, and I do the kids' bedtime routine." Lisa raised an eyebrow at him. "You do bedtime?" she teased. "Since when?" "Okay, fine," Mark admitted, chuckling. "I do bedtime when you remind me." The table laughed, but this time, it was lighthearted. I nodded and turned to Nate. "What about you?" Nate rubbed his chin. "I cook most nights, take care of the bills, and I'm usually the one dealing with house repairs." "Oh, and I do school drop-offs." I nodded, then turned to Lisa. "And you?" Lisa, catching on, smirked. "I do laundry, grocery shopping, and most of the cleaning, but Nate does his share." "Sounds balanced," I said. Then, before my wife could steer the conversation away, I turned back to her. "And what about us, babe? What's our setup?" I could see it now, that flicker of unease in her eyes. She waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, come on, this is silly. Why? You love talking about how little I do. Let's be fair and lay it all out." I gestured toward the table. "I'll go first." I leaned forward, counting on my fingers. I cook dinner about 4 nights a week, sometimes 5. I handle all the bills, mortgage, utilities, car payments, everything. I take care of the repairs, the leaky faucet, the broken cabinet, the garage door when it jammed last month. I wake up early with our son so you can sleep in on weekends. I do school pickups most days. And I help with homework when you're too tired. That sound about right? Silence. For the first time all night, nobody was laughing. My wife's face had gone slightly pale. I turned to the table. "Now, does that sound like a lazy husband to you?" No one spoke. Then Lisa cleared her throat. "No. Actually, that sounds like a pretty great setup." Mark nodded. "Honestly, I'd kill to have a husband that cooks and does school pickups." A couple of people chuckled, but this time, the laughter wasn't at me. It was uncomfortable. Like they had just realized they had been laughing at something that wasn't actually funny. I sat back and finally let my wife feel the weight of her own words. She tried to recover, let out a short laugh. "Oh, come on. It's just jokes." "But they're not," I interrupted, my voice still calm. "You say them like they're jokes, but they're not true. And when you say something enough times, people start to believe it." I looked around the table. Hell, I started to believe it. The weight of my words settled over the table. For the first time, my wife looked unsure, like she had no idea how to come back from this. She forced a smile. "You're making too big a deal out of this." I shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe you've just been making too small a deal out of me." And with that, I picked up my drink and took a slow sip. The conversation shifted after that. Someone changed the subject, something about work, I think. But the energy at the table had changed. Because everyone had just seen it. They had seen her try to turn me into a joke. And they had seen her lose control of the punchline. For the first time, I wasn't the one left looking small. She was. Dinner continued, but the energy in the room had shifted. People still chatted, still laughed, but there was something off. My wife wasn't the center of attention anymore. Her usual charisma, the easy way she commanded the conversation, had dimmed. She wasn't laughing as much, wasn't chiming in as often. And she wasn't looking at me. I could feel it. She was stewing. She hated that I had flipped the script on her. Hated that for once, I had taken control of the narrative instead of just swallowing my frustration and letting her have her laughs at my expense. Good. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little bit. Because for years, she had been writing a version of me that wasn't real. A version that made her look good, made her seem like the overworked, long-suffering wife carrying the weight of our household while I sat back and coasted. But tonight, for the first time, people had seen the truth. And she knew it. Lisa was the first to acknowledge it. She leaned over to me at one point, her voice low. "Hey, just so you know, I've always thought you do more than she gives you credit for." I gave her a small, Appreciative nod. Thanks. Mark chimed in too, once our wives had stepped into the kitchen to help clear the plates. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Dude, I think half the guys here wish they had your setup. You cook, you do pickups, the hell. I'd trade places with you in a heartbeat. I smirked. Yeah? Maybe I should start charging a husband training course. He laughed. Sign me up. The conversation moved on, but I knew my wife had overheard. She was standing at the kitchen island, stacking plates with gin, but I could see it, the way her shoulders tensed, the way her fingers gripped the ceramic just a little too hard. She wasn't used to this. She was used to being the funny one, the one people sided with, the one who could say whatever she wanted about me without consequences. But tonight, for the first time, she wasn't getting the validation she expected. She had lost the room, and it was driving her crazy. The tension was thick the moment we got into the car. The second I shut the driver's side door, I could feel it, the silence, heavy and deliberate. She sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed, staring straight ahead. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. Not at first. The first 5 minutes were nothing but the hum of the road beneath us, the distant sound of another car passing by. I could feel her winding up, could see the way she was chewing on her thoughts, trying to figure out how to start. Finally, she exhaled sharply. Well, that was fun. I said nothing. She let out a short, humorless laugh. You really had to do that, huh? I kept my eyes on the road. Do what? Oh, come on, don't play dumb, she snapped. You know what I'm talking about. I took a deep breath. I just told the truth. You embarrass me. I turned to her briefly, raising an eyebrow. I embarrassed you? She scoffed. Yes. You made me look like a bitch in front of everyone. I let out a dry laugh. No, babe. You did that. I just stopped letting you use me as your personal joke. She rolled her eyes. Oh, for God's sake, it was just banter. It wasn't, I said firmly, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. It hasn't been for a long time. And you know it. She opened her mouth, but for once, she didn't have a quick comeback. So I kept going. For years, I've let you do this. I let you paint me as some useless husband who doesn't do anything, who just coasts while you do all the work. And I took it. I laughed along. I let people believe it. Hell, I even started questioning myself because of it. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. That's not it. It is, I interrupted. And you know what? I'm done playing along. Silence. She crossed her arms tighter, staring out the window. You could have just talked to me about it. I let out a short, disbelieving laugh. I did. More than once. You always brushed it off. Oh, it's just a joke. You're being too sensitive. Everyone knows I don't really mean it. I shook my head. Well, guess what? It wasn't funny. And tonight, I made sure people saw that. She didn't respond right away. For a moment, I thought she might apologize. But instead, she let out a bitter little laugh. Well, congratulations. You got your moment. I hope you're happy. I didn't say anything, because she still didn't get it. She still thought this was about winning, about one-upping her. It wasn't. It was about respect, about not being treated like a joke by my own wife. I exhaled through my nose and shook my head. I don't need to be happy. I just need this to stop. She didn't say another word for the rest of the drive home. The rest of the car ride home was silent. No more snappy comebacks. No half-hearted excuses. Just the quiet hum of the tires against the road and the weight of everything left unsaid between us. When we pulled into the driveway, my wife got out without a word and went straight inside. No slam doors, no dramatic sighs, just cold, tense silence. And honestly, I was fine with that, because I had nothing else to say. I woke up the next morning expecting some kind of fallout. A passive-aggressive remark, an argument waiting for me in the kitchen, something. Instead, I found my wife already awake, sitting at the dining table with a cup of coffee. Her phone was face down on the table, which was unusual for her. She was always scrolling, always texting. But today, she just sat there, staring at nothing. I poured myself some coffee and leaned against the counter. Morning. She glanced at me, then back at her mug. Morning. The air between us was weird. Not tense exactly, just different. I took a sip and finally said, So, you want to talk about last night? She let out a slow breath, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. Not really. I raised an eyebrow. All right, but we're gonna have to at some point. She nodded, staring into her coffee like it held all the answers. I know. I waited, giving her the space to say something first. Finally, she sighed. People texted me this morning. I tilted my head. Oh, She nodded, lips pressing into a tight line. Lisa, Jen, even Nate. A dry chuckle escaped her. They all said you handled last night well. That they never really thought about how I always made jokes at your expense until you pointed it out. I didn't respond. Just let her sit with that. She shook her head. I didn't realize how it looked to everyone else. I just thought it was, I don't know, normal. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, that's kind of the problem. She flinched slightly, like she knew I was right, but hated hearing it. A long silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke again. I don't know why I started doing it. She rubbed her temples. I think, at first, it was just easy. Other women complained about their husbands, so I joined in. It got laughs, it got attention, and I guess it just became a habit. I studied her for a moment. You know, it wasn't just harmless fun, right? She nodded, guilt flickering across her face. I know. I sighed and set my cup down. Look, I don't need some grand apology. I just need it to stop. I need you to respect me the same way I respect you. She swallowed hard. I get that. For the first time in a long time, I actually believed her. The days that followed were different. She wasn't overly affectionate or trying to make up for it in some dramatic way, but she was more aware. She caught herself before making certain comments. When talking to friends, she didn't slip into the useless husband jokes like before. When Lisa made a comment about how her husband never planned vacations, my wife didn't jump in with, "Oh, same," like she normally would. She just didn't, and people noticed. At the next get-together, it was Lisa who joked about Nate forgetting to do something around the house. Someone else joked about their husband leaving dirty dishes in the sink. And for the first time in years, my wife didn't pile on. She just smiled, took a sip of her drink, and changed the subject. And that was enough. Because the teasing, the public put-downs, the little digs disguised as humor, those had stuck with me. They had chipped away at me, bit by bit. But the silence, the absence of those comments, that was what finally let me start rebuilding. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.